Mal McHutchison, CEO of Interactive, mate. It's wonderful to be able to have a chat with you in these crazy times we find ourselves in.
Ronnie, nice to chat, mate. I hope you're well. You look well.
Mate, I'm feeling all right. I'm here in my home office, actually, that with the wonderful team's backgrounds makes it look like I'm in my work office, which is pretty cool. So, Mal, we've been talking, we've been working together with Interactive for a while, and I think what's really exciting is that we've now really crystallised the partnership we have together. And I know you and I talk often about what's going on in the market, etc. But, given where we're at now, I think the crystallisation of our partnership is actually really quite important, because I think as we go through these times of, recessions, etc., partnering through is really quite powerful and important. So I thought maybe we just had a chat about that today and chat about the market and our relationship with each other and why we work with each other, etc. So, and share that with our networks.
Mate, happy to. And look, to be honest, it's interesting when you've got tough market conditions, in spite of our organisations being slightly different focus and sizes, it's pretty clear that you can't do everything. And from our perspective, it's been great. I mean, we've worked together for many years now, but the importance of partnering and being a good partner for us has probably never been more important. And this relationship clearly is something that I value personally, and we value as an organisation. So our successes recently and really trying to formalise how we go about partnering, I think is really topical.
From an Insentra standpoint with Interactive, and you alluded to this yourself, I think it's one thing to be able to plug gaps with one another and partner to be something that the other organisation isn't, to allow them to take a broader offering to market. But what I've learned over 10 years of having a partner-only business is that if your organisation is not culturally aligned, and if the cultures in the businesses don't work together, and aren't the same value systems and the same sort of approaches, then it just doesn't work. Like toxic cultures in Insentra, they don't work.
I remember talking to you really early. I've been here for 3 years now, about the importance of culture, and we're very much a purpose-led organisation. Our purpose is to keep technology human, and we live and breathe that. And it's really informed how we've run the business, probably for a long period of time, but we've really formalised that. And I think being a purpose-led organisation has had real impact for all of our staff. The other thing for us is, we've got a really inclusive nature and environment, but also we've got a culture of learning. And I think partnering is one of those things that we continue to learn. It's important for us to think about how we can be a good partner, as well as finding great partners to work with as well.
Yeah, and I think that, let's pivot from there for a second. And I want to come back to partnering if we can, because I think it's really always interesting to understand what makes someone want to partner and what makes for a good partner. But with where we're at now, and in terms of what the future looks like, the future of work, what are you guys seeing and thinking?
Well, you can see behind me, I'm still in our office here in Sydney, but we've clearly been very mindful of the need to provide choice and flexibility. We've had some of our staff that have chosen to return back to the office, not a return to work, because we've got lots of people working extremely hard, but they've chosen to return to the office. Many have actually chosen to remain at home. I think for us, the takeaway is to give that choice. Now, that clearly requires some enablement in the organisation to give people as much flexibility as possible. I personally have never often or regularly worked from home, and I need to start to think differently about where I allocate and spend my time, because the tools that we've got at our disposal here, Microsoft have told me, and probably you as well, work's something you do, it's not a place you go.
Yep.
And therefore, we think and have that mentality. And you sort of got to lead that change. So I feel, because of the tools we've got at our disposal, so much more trusting of how people go about their daily work. So for us, it's all about flexibility, and will continue to be, probably in some different ways than just working 1 day a week from home. But giving people choice is just paramount for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, over time, I think at the beginning when everyone started, we have to work at home. And you would have been one of those individuals who hasn't, traditionally worked at home. I mean, we've had our UK and US operations entirely remote based as it was. So it was great because, a lot of our Australian crew could learn from what was happening over there. And at the beginning, I think everyone was a little bit like, and then there was a bit, it's sort of a peak of, it's almost like following the IT curves, the trough of disillusionment, etc. I think the interesting thing now about it is that it's not just about providing choice to people, and I think the choice a lot of people are making is indeed, I'd like to work more from home because now that I can, but it's that productivity that changes somewhat, and I've seen a big difference in productivity in our business as a result.
Well, it's about giving people access to systems as well, and for my customers, your partners as well, giving people a good experience as they access applications is just so important. If your performance of the tools you work with at home are so degraded relative to what you get in the office, that's not a great experience. So, we're a multi-cloud provider. We obviously partner deeply with you around Citrix and that sort of remote desktop, remote working capability. We see what we've both got together as a partnership as being hugely valuable in the market, because it's one thing to give flexibility, you're right, but giving people an experience that is ostensibly the same as what they get in an office environment is really, really important as well. And we've seen that, we've lived that experience.
And I think you talk about multi-cloud. I think multi-cloud becomes a really interesting space now too, because whereas previously it might have been a public cloud, hybrid cloud was a lot of what people were talking about, right? And you obviously form part of that hybrid cloud with one of Interactive's core capabilities and insofar as what you provide to the market. I think multi-cloud now is becoming more paramount because, with the remote concept, it's like, well, hang on, where are the clouds and who's going to be where and how do I get the interactivity, for one of no pun intended, across the
But then what we also start to see is once the infrastructure's in existence for people, the security concerns take on a different level of challenge as well, because, again, the security that people have in their remote working capability is indeed quite different as well. So, we've got a pretty strong cyber story and the cyber capability. And, we've seen many more of our customers, stand up environments to facilitate flexible ways of work and remote working, but wrapping that in a secure environment has been really, really important as well. So, every day presents another challenge, another layer of challenge to get over. But, I think choice is the most paramount thing.
Yeah, and endpoint security that you talk about, it's one thing to manage endpoint security when you own the device or control the device, or even in your own device, you still have an ability to manage that endpoint security. Now when it's a bunch of people with their home machines, no control over the operating systems, no control over the security there, that presents so many different and new challenges into a market. It's not like security wasn't busy enough as it was. It's now just got a whole plethora of new issues, as well as all the spammers and the malware and everyone trying to take advantage of everyone during this scenario. So remote work, future of that is going to be really fascinating.
You must have seen significant demand around your Citrix-based services as well, I'd imagine, in the last
100%. Not just Citrix, but also, Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop.
Yep.
Microsoft is sort of at a play now where the Windows operating system, they're really seeing that as being for the data center, not necessarily for the desktop. So Windows Virtual Desktop and their story, and Microsoft and Citrix recently announced, a far tighter relationship as it relates to Citrix Cloud and Windows Virtual Desktop. But that whole ecosystem of virtual desktops, of things like iGel for the endpoints rather than necessarily running Windows devices at the endpoints, running iGel thin client devices, converting them, that whole space has been a definite uptick. But also what's really interesting that I've seen lately as well is a greater focus now. And we've had a user experience as a service for about 5 years. We kind of saw this early on. And right now that user experience and measuring and monitoring what the users are actually getting at the endpoint is now a whole lot more focus for an organization, because the endpoint isn't, as I said earlier, isn't necessarily theirs. So it's not just the growth of that, it's the management and the monitoring and the reporting of those environments that's radically increasing demand.
Just hearing the depth with which you talk about that, I mean, clearly the depth of our partnership and some of our recent experience together has been very heavily Citrix oriented, but you and I both know the story well of a major insurance broker who we've jointly worked with, who had a in a pretty poor Citrix environment, needed to be completely rebuilt. Thousands of users, core applications in the middle. They had a number of issues. The depth of experience that you've got to help us analyse performance issues, reliability issues, security issues, for me has demonstrated just the importance of finding the right partners to solve, in our case, our end user customers' issues. And, I know they're very, very happy with it now. It's taken a period of time, but a brand new Citrix environment for them, their business impact, they just got through their financial year end in June. We had no issues at all for them, and it allowed them in a tough macroeconomic environment to continue to write policy and achieve their outcomes. So, as a really good use case, in spite of not being able to mention the organisation, we've just been so pleased with your support.
And I think, though, in kind with that, the Citrix issues that organisation experienced, that actually is largely the experience that many organisations have, right, with Citrix. But, parking that for a moment, I think what made that work so well is indeed what I was talking about earlier about the power of the partnership when the partnership works. I always say that, Insentra as an organisation is a very, very bad subcontractor, but we're an outstanding partner. Right? So if we're treated as a part of the organisation, and we trademarked the term partner obsessed. Yep. So we are so obsessed about growing partners and working together with people in a partnership as opposed to a subcon relationship, and that's what I think Interactive's done really well with us. And it came from you and your leadership and your vision to be able to see what was in the art of the possible. And that was, you knowing what you guys are really good at, and you do so many things so well for customers that you have the depth of relationship with a customer, so much so that the customer actually isn't concerned whether you particularly have the capability. They're more concerned that they want you leading the charge. So that speaks to that relationship that you owned with that particular customer and many more that we work with you on.
Yeah.
And the ability to
it's very kind of you to say that. These things start and end with trust. We've had a relationship for many years. The leadership that you've had at Insentra, the depth of your leadership, the consistency of your leadership has given us a sense of real belief and trust in knowing how you're going to be there for us. The second thing is, the channel can be a tricky place sometimes, and, it is very heavily a reputation business. And if you know that the partner that you're working with is a partner-only organisation, it gives me and my team a heightened degree of belief that you're always going to be there for us. And your obsession with that, I think, is really, really really important. Not every organisation understands partnering. It's a skill that we're learning because we're not a partner organisation per se, but it takes two hands to clap. And in the spirit of knowing where you guys are and where you play a role for us and how we can support you, it's just been really powerful. So I'm really delighted that we've got a chance to make this a bit more official. Really glad to talk about this publicly. You've got a great business. I value our friendship and the business relationship as well. And congratulations again on being number 2. Great place to work.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mal, and congrats to you guys for being number 1 and for making it, a really wonderful journey that Insentra's had with you guys. And I'm so excited now that we've really crystallised it and made it the next level.
Thanks, mate. Good to chat.
Cheers, Mal. Stay safe.